Now let's go to the new topic, that is the cascade and inheritance in CSS. So I'll give you an intro first about this cascade and inheritance. Okay, inheritance and the cascade are the two fundamental concepts in CSS that are important to understand. The two concepts that are closely related but yet different. Okay, inheritance is associated with how the elements in the HTML markup inherit properties from their parent elements and pass them to the child. Okay, the cascade relates to CSS declaration being applied to a document and how conflicting rules do or do not override each other. Okay, so basically the difference here is in inheritance, the properties that are inherited from the parent element to the child element. And when it comes to cascade in CSS is used for the declaration being applied to a document, and it basically sees the conflicting rules whether they do or do not override with the another one or not. So this is a small intro on cascade and inheritance. Okay, so we'll even see more things in depth and understand cascade and inheritance along with some examples. Okay, now let's go to the first topic, that is the cascade. Okay, the cascade. Okay, so let's see the cascade and then the inheritance. CSS is an acronym of cascading style sheet. So it is not a surprise that the cascade is an important concept, right? The name itself says that the CSS stands for cascading style sheet. Okay, it is a mechanism that controls the end result when the multiple conflicting CSS declaration applies to the same element. So for this is the, as I told you, it's mainly for seeing whether it is overlapping or not, whether the declaration is high priority, low priority, something like that. So it's just the cascade does these works to control the output of the website. So there are three main concepts that control the order in which the CSS declaration are applied, or can also be said as the rules. Okay, so the first rule is the importance. Okay. The second rule is the specificity. Okay. And the third rule is the source order. Now what are these? I will explain you one by one. Okay, so let's go for that. Importance. Okay, let's go for the first one, that is the importance. Importance of a CSS declaration depends on where it is specified. The conflicting declaration will be applied in the following order. Now we'll tell the order also, with later declarations overriding earlier ones. Okay, so the first order for that is user agent style, and the second order is normal declaration in user style sheet. The third one is normal declaration in author style sheets. Okay, the fourth one is important declarations in author style sheet. Okay, and the fifth one is important declaration in user style sheets. So these are the points under the importance. So first one is user agent style sheet. The second one is the normal declaration in user style sheets. The third one is normal declaration in author style sheets, and the fourth and fifth is important declaration in author style sheet and in user style sheet. Okay, so now we'll cover one by one. The first one, user agent style sheets. Okay, this one. A user agent style sheet is the inbuilt or built-in style sheet of the browser. Every browser has its default rules for how to display various HTML elements. If no style is specified by the user or designed of the page. Okay, for this we'll even take an example of our text. Okay, so I have already told you. So when you give an content in a paragraph toggle, let it be anything. It will be always having the default color as black. okay, and it will be always aligned to left, right? So if none of the properties is given to some or the other element, then the browser the browser will give its default settings or default styles that is already built in the browser. So this is also a default for the such a browser, okay. So now this was an example, right? So we can relate it to many things, okay. If you don't give a color for a box, it will be always in black, right? So something like this, these all are kinds which you don't even need to be specified, but you, if you need some other color, then you are, of course, you need to specify it. But by default there are some constraints like this. For text, it is always in black and it is always aligned in the left. Okay, now let's go to the next one, that is normal declaration in user style sheets. Okay, normal declaration are just the normal declarations, okay. The opposite is important declaration, okay. So what does this mean? What is an important declaration? That means something we are stating that it is very important. But when it comes to normal declaration, that means that is nothing like the important, very important, not at all important. It's normal content, right? So when we'll state some important, then we'll always make use of a keyword important, okay. I will cover that in this, okay. But for normal, we'll not do anything, okay. We'll just give the normal what we say, normal specifications for the tags and all, right? So that is all about this both. We'll take that's this both. So normal declaration in user style sheet means that we are giving a normal declaration like p tag and giving some functionalities or styles to it, and the same way for author also. But when it's about the importance, we will use this, okay. Okay, so where will we use? So for example, if you are giving a text some font family like Arial, okay, and you will note or space it important just next to it, okay. So you'll write font family, then a colon, then the font family name, let's take it as Arial, and then next just next to it you will write it this, okay, that it is important, okay. Important declaration in a user style sheet will trump everything else which is logical, okay. That's the matter over here. Okay, now this was all about the importance. So just keep these things in mind, that when it comes to importance, there are two things. One is the important text and one is the normal text. That is these two covered, okay. So if it is a normal, then that's just normal, which we give styling and just giving a content. When it is an important, we are specifying that this is an important content, okay. Now let's go to the next topic or the next subpart, that is the specificity, okay. Now specificity is something that every CSS author needs to understand and to think about, okay. It can be thought of as a measure of how specific a rule selector is, okay. This can be considered in two parts, okay. The one is the low specificity and the next one is the high specificity, okay. Now what is low specificity and what is high specificity? So low specificity are that may match many elements, okay. So now when it comes as many elements, I taught you about the universal selector in the previous video, right? So universal selector is the low specificity element, okay. Why? Because it has an matches with many elements, because it's giving for an property for the whole web page. When it comes for high specificity might only match a single element on a page. We can even take examples like nav tag or giving an ID. So basically why nav tag is only used once, right? And when we are giving some ID and giving the value, that ID may be only mentioned for one time or 2 or 3 times, right? So in such place it is a high specificity, okay. Specificity has 4 components, okay. So the first one is that is A. Let's take it as A. Is quite simple one. It's one for a declaration in a style attribute, also known as a inline styling, okay. And the second one, B, is the number of ID selectors in the selector, those that begins with the hash, right? ID always starts with the hash, okay. And the third one is that the number of attribute selectors including the class selector and pseudo classes also, okay. And the fourth one is that the number of element types and pseudo elements in the selector, okay. So these are the 4 specificity components, okay. So let's keep these also in mind. So I'll even write that. so that you can keep 4 components. So the first one is that the inline styling, okay, and the second one is the numbering, or no, the second one is the ID, number of ID selectors in the selector. Those begins with the ID, okay, ID selectors, okay. And the third one is the number of attribute selectors, okay, and it includes the pseudo class, okay, attribute selectors and pseudo class. And the last one is the number of element types, okay, types and pseudo elements selector, pseudo elements selector, okay. So these are the 4 components of specificity, okay. Okay, now let's go to the next one, that is the source order. So what is source order? If 2 declaration affects the same element, have the same importance and the same specificity, the final distinguish mark is the source code. So now what does this mean? And here, if let's take an example of an p tag, okay, and I'm giving some p tag in the style tag or as an internal style, okay, which we write in the H section, and I'm giving the color or text color for it as black, or no, it's in default, right? So let's take it as a blue, okay. And when I'm writing the coding part of the body tag inside the p tag, I'm writing it as color, I'm writing the color as let's take it as blue, okay, sorry, blue. First was the blue and now it's a green, okay. So now what will happen is, as I have already told you, the coding or the execution starts from the top, right? So first the color of that paragraph tag will be in blue, okay, that which is in the style tag, and the next, in the next occurrence, or when the new style is given, the one which is next, or that is the green color, will be overridden with the blue. So always the one, the latest or the last one will win the order, okay. So why so? Because I have told you it executes from the top, right? So when it executes it, everything, when it executes, all the tags will be in the color which is given in the internal style sheet, okay. Then when we give it an inline, something or other color, then that internal color which we have given will be overridden, okay. So that will disappear, and the new color which we have given in the inline, or let it even take it in internal itself. So two times we have given the p tag, then that internal, the second one will win the order. So that will be having the color, or that color will be in the text, okay. So that's the basic concept here. For this I will even show you one example so that you can even understand it more better. So this is already we are having something, right? So like I'll have a p tag now, and I write this is para, okay. So now I'm going to give a style over here. For this p tag I write color as blue, okay. And now in this inline I will write style and color, color as, let's give it as green, okay. Now in the output you will see this is a para in green color, okay, green color. If I would have not mentioned this, let's just cut this and see, okay. Now the color will be in blue, okay. I've saved it, let's run this, okay. So what's happening over here, the style which I have given in this place, it's getting overridden, okay. Why this green? Because if for take, let's I have written here green and here blue, okay. Now the output will be in the blue because the one in the last, okay. So first it's in green by default, or when it gets executed in the background itself, it will be in green, and then when the runner gets this property or this style in the middle, then it will turn or change the color of this para to blue. So we get the output as a blue, okay. So that's a concept over here about the source order. So this is about the cascade, okay. Now as I showed you an example for source order, we'll even see for specificity, okay. So for that I will give some numbering to this. So I'll give this as 1, and this as 2, and this as 3, and this as 4. So this is for just explanation purpose and to relate it with the example. Okay, so the number 1 is lowest, the 2 is low, 3 is medium, and the 4th is the high. What is this lowest, medium, high? This is the specificity. I have told you already what is low and what is high, right? So the inline is the lowest priority one, and this element selectors or the element type are the highest one. So for this inline, let's take an example as the h1 tag. So the why h1 tag? Because giving an property in the style as h1 will give the property which is mentioned or the style which is mentioned to all the h1 tags. Okay, it will not see any id and all, right? So that's the reason it is the lowest. So I've already told you the common ones, right? So the one which selects all or common, or we can even take an example of star, that is the universal selector, right? So now let's go for the next. For this I would like to give you an example of the id. So the tags which are having the id name will be selected. So this is a bit more specific than the inline, right? Because inline will select each and everything, but when it comes to id, it will only select that tags which has the id with the given or specified id name. Now let's go for the third one, that is the class. So for here we will take the example of the class. Okay, why class? More than the tag and more than the id, class is more and more specific. Yes, only few of them will be given a class name, so it will be really more specific. In a class we can even have multiple id, right? So in the old web page we may have only one or two class names, but when it comes to id there may be 10 to 20, and when it comes to tags, in a very well developed website, tags will be a lot and number of tags, right? So this is more specific than this id, and this id is more specific than h1. Now the most highest priority, that is the last one, element selector. Now I have already showed you this element selector, that was the h over or on click, like that link example, right? That visited link, active link. So this is the most high priority. So there will be, in a web page you can really count the web links which are available. There will be only 1, 2, 3 or really very few of them. So this is really more specific. Okay, so now with the example, or with these examples, we'll see a programming example and see what is it. Okay, so let's go here. Okay, so so we already have something. See this link, I just told you, right? This is the highest one. Why? Because as I have told you, there will only be few of them. So this a, and then this, see, anchor, this target, everything really relates to very higher one, because only few of them or only counted ones will have blank, or only counted ones will have this target one, right? So that's the reason. So let's now just delete it. So let's see perfect and a new one. Okay, let's go with the first one itself, so that it will be really very easy for us. So the first one is the very quite simple one, that is, let's take any element one. Okay, so element, this is a paragraph. Okay, so now I'm going to give styling for paragraph tag. So see, I'll have n number of paragraphs. Okay, with the help of this I'll try to explain you each and everything. Okay, now see, when I give some or the other property in this style tag for p, paragraph tag. Okay, so that as color as cn. Okay, now when I give this, all the p tags present in the website will be given this color. That's true. So what is happening? This is a kind of universal, not totally universal, but a kind of universal, right? It's selecting all the p tags. It's not differentiating any not differentiating any of the p tag with any or other attribute or something or else name present. Nothing. It's just giving each and everything, right? So here this is the simplest and the lowest one. Okay, so let's run this. Okay, see, we got all of them in the cyan color, right? So now even let's see for the low. This was the lowest. Now let's go for the low. When I said low, it was the id, right? So now let's give an id for two of these. Okay, id is equals to, let's give it as red. Okay, and I will give the here also. Oh, so sorry, I am giving id is equals to red. Para 1. Okay, and here I will write id is equals to again para. Now why I'm giving the same names, okay? So this is the second one. So there may be n number of tags, but only few of the tags will have this ID, okay, right? So just give some other coloring, right? So I will even give some other coloring or other style. So hash and the tag. Now this will search for some or the other tag or element which is present in the web page with the ID name as para1. So that is it basically. Okay, so this hash denotes that this is an ID. So if we don't give anything, then that means it's a tag. Okay, and I will give color as let's give it as red, and let's even give a background color. Let's give it as black. So red and black will be good. Okay, now let's run this. See, so the first and the third paragraph got some other styling, while the second and fourth one got the cyan color. So now I will even like to explain you again. Even in this, first all the p tags will be in the cyan color, because first this will get executed, right? And then when this tag styling property comes in, then it will search for the ID and only change those colors which have the ID para1. Okay, so this was the example for the second one, that is this the ID selector. Now let's go for the next one, that is the attribute selector or the pseudo class. So with the help of this we'll be able to do the class. So let's distinguish here with the class. Okay, so when we come for class, so let's take like this, and I will give class as a person. I will give a class name, that div1. Okay, give something else as again another div, and I will give let's give it as, okay, let's have in paragraph and that this again. So now I'm going to make use of the third one, that is the class. I'm going to take the example of a class. Now why I have taken class over here, I would have even took the attribute, right? So I will even show that. So why class and why attribute? So when you come for class, it's always collection of some of the other tags, right? So why class is a collection? Because inside the main tag there will be another sub tag. So this all are grouped as one content or one component. So we'll give it as we'll say the parent as a class, nothing else more than that. Okay, so only few of the tags will be given this class to just show that the content present in this answer inside this specific tag or inside the specific element is of one content or a group, right? So this more than a paragraph or more than a ID, this class will be more accurate. So I'll give right dot, and class name is div1, and I'll give some coloring for this, and I'll write, let's give a border for that, 1 pixel solid. So already cyan is there, red is there, black is there, so let me give it as green. Okay, one second, I did something wrong. Okay, right, I've given a wrong property. See, all these four got this border but not the fifth one. Why? Because it's not inside the class div, it's a part or it's out of the class div. So the class div, it's only for this part, right? So this is not inside the class div. So if I mention this also, I give a class name here also, class is equals to div1, then even this will have that border. Okay, let's run. See, now you can ask me why two borders. If you see here, there's two borders because these are two different tags. Okay, this p tag is not inside this tag, but it's in another separate div tag. So that's the reason there's a two border. Okay, so to make it more accurate and more simpler, we can even take an example of an attribute. Attributes, it is really very high specificity. Why? Because only few of the tags, really very few of the tags will have this www.google.com. So I'll write, I am link. Okay, so that's enough. So now I will give an attribute target, and inside that I will write blank. Now I will give some properties to this anchor tag with the help of the attribute target. Okay, now what kind of properties? Let's give some property. Okay, let's run this first. See, I already got the I am link. Okay, it's all by default in blue. So now let's change it to some other color. Okay. Okay, so I'll write, or I'll make use of this with the help of the attribute. Okay, so for that I will just specify the tag, that is anchor, and the box I will write target. Okay, so in this also we have two ways. One is just by just with the help of the attribute will identify, and we'll also, the second thing is we'll also make use of the value. So and we'll use this. So if I have two links, okay, let me copy this. Okay, and in this I will give something else. Okay, let me give it as self. Now when I say target, both of them will be given this property which I am going to write over here. Okay, I will give the color for that as, okay, so now let's run this. I got both in red. Why? Because both the elements have the attribute target. Okay, so here in this CSS property is just considered on the attribute target. It's not considered on whether the value is blank, whether it's self, whether it's parent, nothing. So it will just search for the tag attribute target. Okay, now let's add one more anchor tag, and now we will not mention any target attribute. So let's see how the output will be. Okay, then I'll give an href, and let's copy paste this. Okay, let's copy paste it. Oh, there. Now I'll not give any target. Okay, because we have given CSS property or the style property to the target tag. Okay, so without this, what will be the output? The last anchor tag or the link will have the color as blue, right? So let's save this. See ya. So why? Because I have told you this is attribute selection. We do studied this in the pseudo class. Okay, so in that we saw the attribute as well as the attribute value selection, right? So now here it was the attribute. Now let's take an example of attribute value. So I will give equals to, let's give it as underscore blank. Okay, now only the element which has the attribute target as well as the value blank will get the color red. Okay, now let's save this. See, only the first one got, because this is having the value as self and this is not even having the tag attribute as target, right? So these both don't apply or don't satisfy the condition, that is the attribute as target and the value as blank, right? So we are just giving that condition only here. So this is not going to satisfy these two. So these two didn't got any effects, right? So now even let's make here, now let's change it to target and write blank. So now this, even this will be turned to red. See, okay, so this is the third most rule or the third most component of this specificity. Okay, so this one. So I have showed you an example of class as well as the example of attribute. Okay, so sorry. Okay, so now let's go for the last but the very highest one, that is the fourth one, the elements type and pseudo elements selector. Okay, now this fourth one I have told you about the links, right? So now in this links we have already created a link, right? So we'll make use of this links. Okay, so when we saw here, see, this is in already in red, and when I click it, it has been visited, right? So there's no internet connection for me, so it's showing no internet, but it's the site is visited, right? So now the link or this status of this link is now visited, right? It's in the backend which goes on. So now I'll give a color for the visited one. or let's give something else. Let's give for an h over. So even in this I will write anchor tag h over. I should give some color. Let's give the color as hot pink. Okay, so now when I take the mouse over the link, it will turn to hot pink. See, so even in this I have not just specified that the one with the target this should be like that, or one with this should be like that. Nothing. I have told the anchor tag when the mouses went over, so it should be in hot pink. So all the three are in anchor tag, so all the three got applied with this. The last one was the example for the fourth component, or the component with highest specificity. Okay, so these are the four components which I have explained you with some examples also. So for first one we made use of some of the specific tag, and then we went for ID, the ID selector, and then the class and the attribute selector as well, and in the last one we made use of the pseudo element selector, okay, with the help of the anchor tag. So this is all about the cascade, and now let's go to the next topic, that is inheritance. Okay, now let's go for the new topic, that is reset CSS, or also known as CSS reset. Now what is this? What is this reset CSS? So if you would have noticed, I would have mentioned in one of the part of the video that there's something like user style sheet or user agent style sheet, okay, something like that. So now what is this? I have also told you every web browser has its default CSS properties, right? That is the user agent style sheet. Every browser has its own style sheet, okay, the local ones, okay. So if you would have noticed, whenever you create a website and run it in the browser, you would have always noted that some of the padding or the margins are given automatically, or some of the extra or something other styling is given by default. So let's take an example of the text, okay. So when there is an an element, okay, so what is an element? And which has an opening tag, a closing tag, and a content between them. So that's an element. So the content between them has some of the other styles by default. So now what is that style? So if you run it in some of the browsers, the text present is always in black color, okay, without giving any style. It is always in black color by default, and it is always assigned to the left of the browser, right? So left of us. So this default is in the user agent style sheet of the web browser. So that is here. So now we may feel that why should I get that black by default? No, I don't want that. So to reset or to remove those by default properties, we'll make use of this reset theory or reset concept. So when I say this reset, there are a number of resets in CSS, okay. There's even a reset input type also. So this so please don't you can even link that here, okay. So if you have noticed in some browsers, there will be two buttons like submit as well as reset. When you click on that reset, all the data which you have inserted will get resetted, and the input fields will be empty again as it was before, right? So in the same way, what is this reset concept going to do is that it's going to reset the all by default properties which are already present in the web browser, as I gave you the example of text. So with the help of this default, we can make it everything as per our need. So for example, let's take an box, okay. So the div tag, and when you create a box or something like that, it's always given a padding from up, okay, from top and from the left or right, whatever it is. So if you feel that you don't need that padding, it should start from the extreme top or top left, right? So in that situation, you make use of this reset concept. So there is no such syntax for here, but what you will do is that you will write that tag name as we are giving it for the internal style, okay. Inside the style tag, you will write the tag name. In the curly braces, you will write padding and margin as 0. So why are you making this? I have already told you that the execution starts from the top. So by default, let us take that the browser is having by default margin as 10 and padding as 10. Okay, so by default it is 10, right? Both are the 10. So now I'm changing that by default one, that is 10 of margin and 10 of padding, to 0. So why I'm doing it? So that it may be more user friendly and the output will be as per my desire. So when this concept of by default or the user agent style sheet is there, CSS author really gets very irritated because of this. Why? Because already some of the other padding, margin and some default properties are given there. So being an, let's think like a CSS author. Okay, so you are thinking that your box or your table should start with the extreme corner, top left corner, but because of this some already built-in properties, the table or the border which you have created is coming after 10 padding and 10 margin, or 20 padding and 10 margin, like that. So when seeing that, some of them even get confused that why is it happening like that. So in that places the CSS author really gets very irritated. So even if you would have noticed the submit button in each and every browser, the submit button has some of the other outlook like this. For example, in some browser it will be in a rectangular, in some it will be a rounded rectangular, something like that. This keeps on changing, right? So when we as a developer or as an author, we do this and we get irritated that what is it happening, I'm giving some other property and this is something else is happening, right? So in such a place we'll make use of this reset. So some of the developers have this habit, or some of the authors have this habit of doing this. They always want the by default properties to be removed first. For that they will make use of this reset concept. Okay, this reset concept in CSS, for some it will be like this is useless, so why to reset, directly give that actually there's no syntax, right? When I told you that let's give paragraph tag P and curly braces, right, margin and padding 0 0, this is actually a style, right? So this is like a basic style property, right? So some feel this is useless, but at the same time some authors feel it is really very important for some places, right? So it depends on the author or the developer to take it necessary one, or to leave it just it's of no use. So to make the default, but the meaning for this reset concept is just this thing, that to remove the default properties which are given in the browser and to get an user friendly one, that's all. Okay, so there's anything else in this. Okay, so don't worry about it. This reset concept is really very simple. Just to reset the default properties, we'll make use of this. There's no mandate that you should use this to get such an output. No, nothing like that. Just for a simple thing, for, as I said, to remove that text color from black to blue, that's all. Or if you would have noticed, some of the, when you give a background or without giving a background, you will get a background color, because of some of the web browsers have that background. So even you can make given style like background as transparent, right? So it depends on the users and the authors to whether use this reset concept or not. So this is all about the reset in CSS. Okay, now let's go to the next topic, that is inheritance. So inheritance is the mechanism by which certain properties are passed on from a parent element down to its children, okay, in the same fashion as a genetic. So let's take an live example. If a parents are having a blue eye, then their children may probably have the blue eye. Okay, now let's see why to make use of this inheritance. CSS as an inheritance mechanism, because otherwise CSS rules would be redundant. Without inheritance, it would be necessary to specify styles like font family, font size and text color individually, which may lead to code redundancy. So when if suppose I'm giving an style property to any of the one tag and it has another child tags which is present inside it, then the parent as well as child, both the tags will have the same property. Okay, so there's no use for giving separate properties for the parent and the separate property for the child. So in that case it becomes an code redundancy. So basically inheritance is the characteristics or the code or something like the style which is transformed or which is even carried from the parent to child also. So this is the inheritance concept. So now we will see a small example for inheritance and we will understand this in more depth. Okay, so for inheritance, see, I have already some tag. Okay, now let's just remove these tags, I don't need it. let's close the tag. Okay, now let's have some p tag inside the div tag. Okay, so I'll write this is a para. Okay, I'll have few more. Now here, this is the parent tag and this is the child tag. So the properties which is given to the parent tag will be even inherited in the child tag also. So I'm going to give some properties to the div tag. Okay, this I'll write background color as blue. So now not only the div tag but also the parent tag which is there inside this will have the color blue. Okay, so now let's run this. So that is blue. See, now even here just the p tag and the div tag is got blue, not the background. Why? Because we have not given it to the body. If I give this to body, so sorry. Okay, now the full website or web page will be in the blue. See, so the full is in the blue, and I've already told you default will be of always black. Inheritance. So when I even told you that code is being inherited or code is being repeated again and again is not used over here. That is the code redundancy. Why I told you that sentence is, see, now I gave this color background color to body, right? So now the whole web page is in body, so there's no use of giving something like this. Is there any meaning for this? No, we don't have any meaning because the div tag is under or inside the body tag. So now div is child for the body. So body is the parent tag and the div is the child tag. So again this property is also inherited in this child, right? So now there's no use of this code. So if you see the output, you will not be able to see any difference in this. So then what's the use of this? So this is known as code redundancy. So with the help of this inheritance concept, we can even what to say, omit or reduce this data redundancy. So not only the paragraph, let it be any tag inside this, let it be an article also. The tags inside the div tag as well as inside the body tag, okay, are given this background. So for this, to explain this body, not only this div, but let's have another div also, or let's have an article. Okay, when this article will have the background blue because the full body is blue. So body is the parent for the div as well as the article tag, and this article and this p tag is the child for this div. Okay, so let's run this again. This is the place where we are making use of inheritance. Okay, so we can even give some separate styling for this div which will be even inherited here. So let's see. Let's give a border for it so that it will be the difference for it. Border 1 pixel solid, and let us give it as hot pink. Now when you see this div as well as the one which is inside the div as well as this div will have a border of 1 pixel solid hot pink, but this article will not have it. Okay, now save this and run it. See, okay, why is this article not having it? Because this article is not the child of the div tag. Okay, it's the child of the body tag. So if I give something else over here, so now let's give it as font size as 30 pixels. So now what will happen is each and everything will be of a 30 pixel. Okay, see, now this got executed or this got changed to 30 pixel because this is the child of the body tag, right? So body tag is the parent. So the concept or the styling which is given in the parent is inherited in the child. You can ask me how is this getting in getting the font size as 30, because see, this is the parent. So the concept or the style for this body is inherited to div. So now absolutely even div has this style, this background as color, background color is blue and font size as 30. So now this is a parent for this both tags, right? So even that properties will be inherited. So this is the cycle of inheritance. Okay.